Michigan Out of Doors Online is brought to you in part by
Big bucks are not hard to come by. Ask these hunters who have one thing in common. No, we're not talking about big smiles on their faces. All these hunters learn the secret of how to grow big antlers. A product that requires no planning. A product that's easy to use and is guaranteed to grow buck's antlers to their full potential. It all starts here with the brand Lucky Buck. Guaranteed to grow bigger bone or your money back.
Welcome to Michigan Out of Doors. I'm Jenny Olson, and we are gearing up for summertime fun here in Michigan. This week, we're going to take you out to southern Michigan on a pan fishing tournament. Lots of fun happening down there. We'll also stop in at Lucky Buck Deer Minerals to learn a little bit more about that, and Jimmy's got some other fun stuff for us this week, too.
Well, that's right, Jenny. We do have a few more things on this week's show, and that story that you just referred to, the Deer Mineral, well, that is a Michigan-based company that I recently ran across at one of the many outdoor shows that we have here in the state of Michigan. I learned a lot about Deer Minerals, and I thought I would share that with you, the viewer, and that's kind of where the last story on this week's show came from as well. While looking at lots of different Michigan products that we run across throughout the year, had one that recently kind of piqued our interest, and I tell you what, if you're a mustard fan, you're going to want to stay tuned for the recipe at the end of the show. Lots of good stuff on this week's program, so make sure you stay tuned. I'm Jimmy Gretzinger, and it's time for Michigan Out of Doors.
From the first spring rains to the soft summer breeze, dancing on the pine forest floor, the autumn colors catch your eyes. Here come the crystal winter skies. It's Michigan, Michigan Out of Doors. Someday our children all will see this is their finest legacy, the wonder and the love of Michigan. As the wind comes whispering through the trees, the sweet smell of nature's in the air. From the Great Lakes to the quiet stream, shining like a sportsman's dream, it's the love of Michigan we all share.
Michigan Out of Doors is presented by Greenstone Farm Credit Services, making recreational land ownership possible across Michigan and northeast Wisconsin. Begin your land financing journey at one of Greenstone's 37 locations or visit greenstonefcs.com. By Meijer, a destination for hunting, fishing, and camping. From bug spray and tents to GPS and gas, Meijer has nearly everything you need to take on nature and get you there. Meijer. By Rosie Brothers. Located in Dryden, Michigan, Rosie Brothers has been serving Michigan for over 40 years. Specializing in outdoor needs, Rosie Brothers features Kubota tractors and equipment for use in farm, home, or commercial needs. On the web at rosiebrosinc.com. By Country Smokehouse, offering a variety of meat products. Country Smokehouse is located 3 miles south of I-69 on M53, just south of Imlay City. Country Smokehouse is a meat processor, a butcher, and a destination for sportsmen.
Hi, I'm Jordan Brown. This week we kick off the show with a pan fishing tournament from the southern part of the state with a little bit of a twist. This was a Relay for Life pan fishing tournament, which made it an excellent way for sportsmen to help donate to a very worthy cause.
We are fishing Bobby's Lake in southern Hillsdale County, competing in a panfish tournament for Relay for Life. Have a very good turnout. Got 55 boats in the tournament. So anybody interested in getting in it next year, we're definitely going to do it again. So come out and support Relay for Life. Limit of 50 fish. It's 2-man teams and minimum length of 6 inches. And then we're also having a contest for the biggest fish and an exact length contest. And then we're having a fish fry afterwards and gonna have a good day. They're just starting to bed in southern Michigan, so we're kind of fishing the beds right now, and we're using flies and either wax worms or crawlers. So far they're just starting to come up on the bed, so hopefully they get active here real quick.
The morning bite started out a little bit slow as we waited for water temperatures to warm up.
but we were finding a few fish here and there. And although these two guys love to catch fish, today was about more than putting fish in the boat.
I think there's very few people in this country that haven't had a family member touched by cancer, and so that's the biggest reason we're out here for this pan fishing tournament and for the competition. And, everybody's got a competitive spirit, but Joe and I our families come from a lot of children that our aunts and uncles have passed away from cancer, so it means a lot to us. So that's one of the biggest reasons we're out here doing this, is to try to find a cure.
As the day went on, the fish began to move into shallow water and onto their beds. Seeing fish today was not going to be a problem. Most of these bluegills were in less than 2 feet of crystal clear water within 15 feet of the boat. But as well as we could see them, I'm sure they could see us, and that added an extra element in trying to catch them. Getting them to bite was going to take a little extra effort.
That's what you call working for them. Very, very hesitant to bite today. You really got to work at them. I worked at that one big gill for about a half hour, and I finally put him in the boat. But they're finally starting to bed, but they're very uninterested in eating right now for some reason. I think they're getting ready to actually do their spawn, so they're pretty lethargic. Warmed up, they got a little bit better, but it's not been a spectacular day, but we've got some nice ones in the box. We tried live bait wax worms with a dry fly. They were interested in that for a little while. Joe in the back of the boat here, he's using actually a hook and a big chunk of night crawler. And then I'd use some artificial baits this morning, just little jigs that seem to work pretty good too.
Well, slowly but surely we were putting fish in the boat, but compared to the number of fish we could see, it didn't feel like a great morning. But that didn't seem to matter much. These anglers enjoy just about all of their time on the water, especially when it comes to pan fishing.
I've been a pan fisherman all my life. I like catching fish, and bass fishing, it's pretty hit and miss. You don't catch them quite as often as you do the pan fish, so I don't know. I just grew up pan fishing, and that's the way I like. A lot of the guys that we talked to were so glad to see a panfish tournament for a change instead of a bass tournament. And plus we're getting the word out. But a lot of guys, we got 55 boats in this thing in our very first year. And so we've considered a huge success. And there's the guys are just glad to be able to compete into something that's not your typical bass tournament.
After spending most of the morning on the water, it was time to head to the weigh-in, being held at the Big 9 Sportsman's Club. Kathy Bell was in charge today, and she was able to tell me a little bit about how this whole event got started.
We're here today for Fishing for a Cure. Ron Carr, he's a guy that we work with at Tenneco in Litchfield, and he come up and he wanted to have a fishing tournament. Cancer's pretty near and dear to his heart, so he wanted to have a pan fishing tournament, and I said, sure, let's do it. They can start at fishing at midnight Sunday morning. They have to be back here at 2 o'clock. They'll go through and they'll get their lengths checked, and then they'll get weighed in, and then the fish will come right over and we'll start frying it up and people can start eating. We've got a bunch of prizes that were donated, like 15 Shimano rods and reels and just all kinds of stuff that's been donated. And we'll do prize drawings on that. We'll have a 50-50, and then we have some t-shirts for sale too.
It takes an entire team of volunteers to make events like this one successful. One of the volunteers on hand today was Skeeter Warner, and he's no stranger to fishing tournaments throughout the state of Michigan.
This year is about Relay for Life, Cure for Cancer. This is our first year for a panfish tournament, and I'm really, really amazed how many boats we have. We had 56 boats for the first year. And they're raising, I don't know how many thousand, there'll be several $1,000s raised today. They're a great bunch of people that put this on. I got involved with them because they wanted some batter mix, and it went from batter mix to what we're doing now. Because these people are so great, I decided to devote every minute I had to them. So just a great organization, and we hope to raise a lot of money today to try to cure cancer.
Total weight, 22.15. 22 pounds, 15 ounces. Good job, guys.
It's great to see an event supporting cancer research that caters to sportsmen and women, allowing folks to spend a day on the water and also donate to a very worthy cause. Hopefully we'll start to see a few more events like this one throughout the state.
One of the things we get asked quite a bit is how do we come up with stories for Michigan Out of Doors? Well, a lot of times it's you, the viewer, contacting us, letting us know what's going on in your neck of the woods, and that ends up being a story for Michigan Out of Doors. A lot of times it's as we're traveling the state, bumping into different sportsmen or different Michigan-based companies that we think you would be interested in. Well, in the last year or so, I ran across Dave Wheeler, the owner of Lucky Buck, and I see him at several of the outdoor shows across the state of Michigan, and I really learned a lot about minerals and about how they help deer grow bigger antlers. And so I wanted to sit down with him and find out a little bit more and maybe let you know, if you've never tried minerals or maybe that's something that's new to you, what that whole thing is all about.
In the great state of Michigan, there seems to be no end to deer season. Well, let me be clear, you can't hunt them year-round, but deer hunters do seem to think and strategize all year long. This time of the year, many an avid hunter is messing with food plots and in many cases using minerals to help grow bigger antlers. And I figured it was time to learn a little bit more about them.
Well, we're here today with Dave Wheeler from Lucky Buck. And Dave, you're located here in Michigan. We've seen you at lots of different shows and kind of been at your booth a few times just learning a little bit more about Lucky Buck. But for some of us that are not that familiar with minerals, are you feeding them to deer in the summer to grow antlers? Are you feeding them in the fall to try to attract them in? What are minerals best used for, and kind of what is Lucky Buck best used for?
Our main emphasis is for antler growth, and a healthier deer will create a bigger antler, and that's the basis for the mineral. It works great as an attractant too, so it's kind of a dual purpose, but our main emphasis is early spring feeding for that antler growth.
Now, one of the first questions I asked Dave was just how much of this stuff do you need to put out, and what time of the year is really best for this kind of a product?
It's good to leave all they want all the time, but they will regulate themselves because of the salt level in it. The critical time is obviously early spring, and that's when the grass starts growing at green up, and that's when their consumption is going to skyrocket, and that's when the antlers are really taking off and growing. So I would say the most critical time is from green up till the end of July.
It did seem that the growing season would make the most sense as far as when to have this stuff on the ground and then taper off as the fall gets a little closer.
Give me a little bit about your background. I mean, is this just something you came up with in your garage one day, or how did you even get into this whole field?
My background is dairy nutrition, and I balanced rations for dairy farms all over the state. And there were, in the mid-90s, there was some products on the market that were really good attractants, but didn't really have any nutrient value. And I thought I could do better than that. I thought I could make something that would attract the deer as well as be good nutritionally for them.
Okay.
And so in the mid-90s, I came up with this formula, marketed a little bit for a few years, and TB hit northeastern Michigan, and I pulled it off the market because I didn't want to be affected with the baiting bans and rules and regulations, and that northeast part of the state was my core marketing area.
Okay.
So I took it off the market, but several of my customers had really good luck with it, and they insisted that I keep making it. So I made it for a few individuals and the local feed mill in Hillsdale there, and that led to the world's biggest 8-point coming along, which was my marketing opportunity, and I jumped on it, and it's taken off drastically since then.
Okay, that was the Vic Bollner buck, right?
Right.
Okay.
Some of you out there do remember the Vic Bollner buck. We had it on Big Buck Night the year that this Michigan giant was taken. It was actually shot on Dave's property. And of course, you can't be talking about deer minerals without asking what is actually in this bucket.
I'm willing to give you part of my secrets so that you know there's some science behind it, so you know that there is actual factual information. And it's the relationship of salt to selenium that I think is one of the most critical things that nobody else has really done. They've been afraid to put this high a salt level in it because the leading deer biologists tell you not to feed a high salt diet. And as a nutritionist, I need to know how much they're going to eat. And especially with an aggressive level of selenium, I really need to know how much they're going to eat because it's toxic if they get too much. By putting a high level of salt in it, I can put an aggressive level of selenium because I know they're not going to overeat it.
How do you kind of regulate how much a deer is going to actually eat?
Salt is a necessary element, but it's one of the few things, one of the only things that I know of that is eaten according to need. If the temperature's hot, if your respiration's high, if your perspiration's high, if your diet's wet, then you increase your intake, and otherwise it's at a lower level. And the analogy I use that most people can relate the best to is a cup full of salt. If I challenged you to eat a full coffee mug full of salt right now, you would immediately have a negative thought in your mind of what that would taste like as you were eating it. That's the same thing that I'm regulating that deer's intake with. He can't overeat it, just like you wouldn't keep eating that mug of salt.
I have to say I learned a lot about minerals while talking with Dave, and that is what drew me to interview him for the TV show. Yes, he would love to sell some product, but he is very knowledgeable about deer and is the first to say this is not a magic bullet to shoot monster bucks.
These giant bucks that I display at the shows and that we have behind me are all really mistakes. They all would have been harvested the year before if somebody would have had a chance. Not one of these would have lived another year if somebody would have made a good kill shot on them or seen them. But so I don't get as excited about these as I do about the guy that comes up to me and has a 2.5-year-old buck that's worth hanging on his wall. That's what's going to happen to most of the people most of the time. If you don't catch up with that buck and he gives it another year or two age, then you have a chance at these also. But if you're going to go buy a buck at a lucky buck to get that buck, a lot of other things have to fall in place. He has to have his age, you have to have some decent genetics, although the genetics are way overrated. You can grow bucks big anywhere. You don't have to be in Pike County or Buffalo County or any specific geographical area. We have enough genetics in Michigan or Pennsylvania or any of these states, for that matter, to grow world-class deer.
And lastly, now, do you ever get to get out and do any hunting yourself anymore or not?
Very little. I've got 8 kids, and I'm busy tracking down deer that time of year from my customers' perspective.
Well, thanks for spending some time with us today. Appreciate it.
As more and more Michigan hunters manage their deer property, the use of minerals and attractants seems to just keep growing. Thanks to Dave for shedding some light on just how this Michigan company hopes to help folks grow bigger bucks.
For our next story, we highlight a couple of teachers going above and beyond to make sure kids spend more time in the outdoors, and also in the process writing a children's book that helps them relate what they learn in the classroom to what they see outside.
Ben and Jamie Anderson have made it a point to make sure more youngsters get involved in the outdoors at a young age, despite living in an area that's not conducive to the outdoor sports. By taking kids on a fishing field trip, they are able to accomplish this and still relate to the school's curriculum.
I think this kind of started out of my principal at the time came to me and said, well, what would you do if you could do anything in the world? And I said, I'd take kids out fishing. And she said, well, we'll do that. After that, we kind of figured out what standards it connected with in reading, what standards it connected with in science, what standards it connected with in math. And there are things like the ecosystem that we cover in 4th grade that are directly related to it. The only thing that I felt our program was missing over the course of the years was a book that kind of wrapped everything in a nice, neat bundle and told a story. And that's where my wife and I kind of brainstormed and came up with this book.
To accompany what the kids are already learning on the fishing field trip, the Andersons have also co-authored a book geared towards showing kids all that the outdoors has to offer.
Well, like Ben told you, he's been taking the kids out fishing here for so many years, and we had a long car trip to take one year. We had to drive all the way out to Minnesota to see some family, and on the way he said, you know, I've had this idea for a book, and I thought it would make a really good story for kids, and we could even use it on the fishing field trip. And I said, well, we've got about 8 hours in front of us, so shoot. So I I got out a notebook and started jotting down his ideas, and by the time we got out of the car, we had a complete storyline. And of course, it wasn't finished. We've been working on it that was about 2 years ago that we started the idea. And so it's been a work in progress. I worked on the illustrations, which was no small feat with 2 little ones running around, but we named the book The Life Lessons of Liam and Lila. That's going to be the name of our series, actually, because we have a lot more ideas for future books. And this one's called Liam's Fishing Lesson with Grandpa.
This fishing field trip is a little different than some kids' fishing events because it relates so many things from the classroom to real life, and also allows kids to have several different experiences throughout the day.
We kind of break it down into 2 groups. We have one group up there fishing, and we have one group down here reading a book about fishing, and that was where my wife and I kind of, over the years, came up with our fishing book. So half the time they're fishing and half the time they're doing an activity that involves an aquatic ecosystem or a Michigan type aquatic ecosystem. We take for granted the standards that are covered in school and how they connect with the things we do every day. When you go out fishing, it ties into the reading strategies. When you're looking at the DNR's nonfiction fishing guide to make sure you're following the guidelines, you need to be taught those things. And we actually, we do, every teacher covers those in the classroom, but you kind of take for granted that they're directly related to something like fishing. We do that with writing, with reading, math. You get into the length of, length of a bass or length of a walleye to be able to keep it. They need to be able to read, interpret, and estimate the different lengths of the fish, if they want to take it out. And that's kind of what we're doing today, and that's what we've been doing since we started.
The fishing was a little slow today, but catching fish is not what this field trip is all about. Special thanks to Ben and Jamie Anderson for inviting me out and for all their efforts to get more kids involved in the outdoors.
Like I mentioned earlier, we get a lot of stories as we're traveling around the state, and that's kind of how I bumped into this next group. They got a new product out there that kind of caught my attention. It's sort of a recipe, but it's more of an introduction to really a condiment that you may just have to try.
When I come across a product I think most Michigan sportsmen would like to know more about, we try to get it on the TV show. This product would definitely fall into that category.
My name is Brian Ernst. I'm the president and CEO of Backwoods Mustard Co. Brand new startup, Michigan-made company. We just started less than a month ago. Backwoods started off as a deer camp tradition 20 plus years ago. We decided to bring it to market. We spread it around, everybody loved it. Started making mustard in my kitchen, and then we turned it into a full-scale production company. So it's all Michigan-made, all the way from the jar to all the raw ingredients to the label itself. So that's really how we got started.
Anytime a deer camp recipe takes off, it's worth taking notice. And it seems this concoction of mustard and spices is doing just that.
Really how it started off was summer sausage, crackers, and cheese. It's fantastic spread out on top of that. Of course, we use it as pretzel dips. You can really add it to anything. It's a condiment of really all different sorts of food. Potato salad is another great use. And what we actually did today is we prepared some shish kebabs. We have a marinade sauce that we use 3 parts mustard, 1 part soy, and then a half a part honey. Mix it all together, soak all your venison steaks in that, and then skewer it up, plain and simple. I like the pineapple with the venison. It really helps give it a sweet flavor. The mushrooms, green peppers, red peppers. Throw it all on a skewer, cook it at about 350 on a grill, and only takes about 10-15 minutes tops. So about 8 minutes aside, and you're good to go. Also, another favorite use of ours is bratwurst, of course. Bratwurst, burgers, hot dogs. Really, you'll find all sorts of applications for it. So it's a sweet jalapeno mustard that is starts off real sweet, ends with a little burn at the end. It's delicious.
So if you're looking for a new marinade, or you're just one of those mustard enthusiasts out there, the Backwoods guys would love to meet you. I couldn't even turn the camera off before diving in. It's always good to see a deer camp tradition going mainstream.
Thanks for joining us this week for Michigan Out of Doors. If you're ever wondering what Jimmy, Jordan, and I are up to during the week, you can always visit us on our Facebook page at Michigan Out of Doors TV. We're on there every few days, kind of checking in, letting you know what we're up to. And you can also check us out on our website. Lots of interesting information about the TV show there, and that's MichiganOutofDoorsTV.com. Speaking of the show, we've got a lot of exciting stuff coming up for you over the next few weeks.
Well, that's right, Jenny. Lots of stuff coming up over the next several weeks. We've been out on the Big Lake doing a little bit of fishing. We've had a couple different trips on Saginaw Bay. I recently did a story on outdoor photography and kind of focused in on one of the best father-son photo teams that we have here in the state of Michigan. We're going to be heading to the UP in a matter of days for a sportsman's triathlon. There is a ton of stuff in the works and a ton of stuff right now going on if you're a sportsman here in the great state of Michigan. So hopefully you'll join us right back here next week, same time, same channel for Michigan Out of Doors.
Michigan Out of Doors is presented by Pictured Rocks Boat Cruises of Munising, exploring Lake Superior's Pictured Rocks National Lakeshore with its sandstone cliffs, caves, waterfalls, and lighthouses. Pictured Rocks Boat Cruises on the web at picturedrocks.com. By Zimmer Roofing and Construction in Port Huron, featuring Duralast roofing systems made in Michigan. Zimmer Roofing and Construction provides installation, maintenance, service, and repair, serving commercial and residential clients on the web at zimmerroofing.com. By Propane, exceptional energy. Propane retailers promote the safe use of Michigan-produced gas energy in homes, farms, and businesses across our great state. Learn more at usemichiganpropane.com. By Meyer, a destination for hunting, fishing, and camping. From bug spray and tents to GPS and gas, Meyer has nearly everything you need to take on nature and get you there. Meyer. Closed captioning is brought to you by Propane, exceptional energy. Propane retailers promote the safe use of Michigan-produced gas to outdoor enthusiasts across our great state.
When I wander far away, a dream stays with me night and day. It's the road that leads to my home state. I am a Michigan man. Changing seasons paint the scene like rainbow trout in a hidden stream. The white-tailed deer in the tall pine trees. I am a Michigan man. I am a Michigan man. Ask where I'm from and I'll show you my